Alright, so with the Kitasan Black banner just around the corner, I'm sure we're all scrounging up whatever carrots we can to help us get that 30,000 mark for a spark. Well, today I'm going to show you how in one single run you can probably get around 1,000 plus carrots, maybe even more, depending on how much you've done in the game so far. And of course, the secret is going to be none other than Bakushin. Because what we're going to do is we're going to try and go for one of the achievements in the game. So if you go over in the special missions and the main here, you'll see that there's an achievement for winning 30 wins in one career playthrough. But of course, there's also one for 29 wins, 28 wins, 27 wins, 26 wins, 25, all the way down to like 20 wins or so. So I've already gotten a run of 20 wins. But of course, your mileage may vary. Not only that though, but you also will be getting some trophies for any graded races that you have not yet won. Each graded win gives you 30 carrots on your first win. So we're going to try and aim for 30 wins in one career playthrough today. Now, of course, the one issue is that, well, if you're racing, you're not really training your stats, right? Well, that's why I'm going to show you how we're going to do it today. So first things first, to address the elephant in the room, things have changed here now because this is actually a run that I recorded on my phone using my phone's video capture. So this is going to be in portrait, but hey, you get to see some fancy background, I guess. But as mentioned, this is going to be a Bakushin run. Hers is by far the easiest to get a lot of wins in because of the fact that she is doing a lot of sprints, and sprints are pretty easy. So for our legacies, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a guest that has a nice speed legacy. And that's because, well, like we mentioned, you're not going to be doing that much actual training. So to compensate for that, you know, the turns that you lose from training, we're going to get the speed instead from the sparks. And then next up is your support deck. This is probably one that matters quite a bit now. So you'll see here I'm shuffling around. We're going to go for a 4 speed 2 wit build. We don't really need any stamina. We don't really need any power or any other stats like that. 4 speed, of course, because we want to get a lot of speed, and wit is to help us out on those turns where we do want to use wit training as an alternative for resting to get some energy back. You'll see here all the buffs. Now, specifically, we're going to grab a max limit break speed card. Now, when Kitasan Black does actually come out, this will be much easier to do because you can just borrow a Kitasan Black that will make your speed a lot easier to max out, even when you are spamming races, because of the fact that she will just always appear, or not always, but she will very likely appear with rainbow training on the speed category. The one other wit card that we're grabbing here, which is very important, aside from fine motion, is Marvelous Sunday. And that's because Marvelous Sunday actually has some really nice skills. Namely, Straightaway Adept, which is increasing your velocity on a straight. But otherwise, we also have Asian Flash, another good speed card, because alongside that Straightaway Adept, you also have Straightaway Acceleration to increase your acceleration, and then also you have Adept for velocity. But essentially, the main goal of your run should be, step 1, as always, try and get as much bond increase as possible. So look for the training facilities with multiple of your support cards to try and increase their bond to the orange part, so like 80% or more. That is when you can start having rainbow trainings. And this is because, again, if we're not going to be spending that many turns training, you want to make sure that when you do train, it's a good one with lots of rainbows, lots of stat increases. But of course, up until your first make debut race, you can only train, so that's pretty clear cut what you're going to be doing for your first little bit of the run. Now, of course, it's not exactly going to be as easy to just simply follow my run through here because, of course, it is RNG. You might not have the same rainbow rates. You might not have the same events happening. You might get hit by like a bunch of bad mood downs or whatever and stuff like that. So instead, I'll give you a sort of overarching guideline, something you can sort of kind of follow by seeing what I've done. So, namely, first thing with Sweep Tosho, in her event chain, one thing I did make sure to do is that when you got to her second event chain, you choose the bottom option, which does give you one stage of mood down, but it does give you Lone Wolf, because of course the Lone Wolf is pretty good skill, at least for, the races, and then the mood down can easily be fixed by recreation. Also, one big thing is that you want to put Bakushin as a front runner ASAP, ideally in the first race, because as a pace chaser, you actually need more stamina as a pace chaser, and also you need some power to be able to push through in that final spurt. Whereas if you're a front runner, all you need is the speed to get into that first place position and then hopefully hold on to that. Of course, it does fall away if you aren't managing to get into that first place position, but this is great for Bakushin because she does have good growths in speed. And a lot of her races are very short distance, being sprints, so you don't really need that much stamina. That's why Bakushin is so easy for her career, because she is pretty much one stat only. That being said though, there are a few mile races that you can try and do. Just be wary that mile races will be a little bit tougher because you might need a little bit more stamina. So maybe if you can pick up some sort of corner recovery along the way, either from inheritance, that will help things out. Another thing is that I'm trying to min-max in this run here, both trophies and also the 30 win achievement. In theory, you could split this up into multiple different runs, and that is because the 30 wins are not specifically in graded races. You can do pre-OP and OP races even, you know, just to guarantee wins to make it easier for yourself. I specifically am going for graded races, which are a little bit tougher, but that's because I want the carrots as well. In fact, you probably should go and do some trophy farming runs anyway, even if you aren't aiming for the 30 wins in one run, because if you think about it, there are 69 nice G3 races. In theory, if you were to complete all of them, you would have 2,070 carrots. And then of course, there are still the G2 and the G1 races, which there are less of, but still, those are a lot of carrots on the table. The other tip I want to give is to use your race scheduler to look ahead. Essentially, after you do 3 races in a row, that's when things start to get dicey. So you can do 2 back-to-back races, but on your 3rd race, that is where you get a warning that you might have a mood down and also get a condition called skin outbreak, which every turn has a chance to lower your mood even further. But I'll be honest, I could very comfortably do 3 races in a row pretty often. And if that 3rd race is one of your goal races, then you can do that without any worry at all. But the reason why I say to use your goal, or your race scheduler rather, is so that you can plan where you do your races and also to see upcoming races that do award the 30 carrots for being your first win. So you can prioritize those. So for example, if you see that there is a sprint on this turn and also a sprint on the next turn, but for the current sprint you already have the trophy, maybe instead you can spend this turn doing something else instead and then going and grabbing another trophy on the next turn. Or of course you could just do both, right? But that's why I said that you might not always have that option to do both if you have been doing a few in a row. Maybe there is a temptation that you want to do your training instead if there is, for example, say a rainbow on speed. But if there's only, let's say, 1 rainbow speed, then maybe you can afford to skip it. But if there's say 2 or 3 rainbows on speed, maybe then that is worth it. Especially again, if it is a mile race, because mile races, although Bakushin could win them, they are a little bit dicier on the stats because of that extra stamina that you may need because of the increased distance. But also, coming back to the stats, that is why we are also having the sparks for speed from the legacy Umas. Normally with Sakura Bakushin, you don't really want to get speed sparks because, well, just for anyone really, you don't really want speed sparks because ideally you should be training it manually to easily cap it out. And you should be using sparks to get what you are lacking. But again, what we are lacking in this run will be speed because we are not going to be training it that often since we're going to be doing races instead. On the topic of sparks and inspiration though, one thing to remember is that you will get a set of inspiration during your classic and senior years during late March, which is coincidentally when you have a goal race in both years. So let's say you're in the early January, February parts of the year and you're looking at some races, do remember that you will be getting a nice big burst of stats to help you out in the following races. Now, as a brief outline of how mine went so you can get an idea of what exactly you should be aiming for in order to get 30 wins. Aside from the debut race in the junior year, I won 3 other races for a total of 4 within the first year, and that was the Niigata Junior Stakes in late August, the Kokura Junior Stakes in early September. Unfortunately, I came second in the Saudi Arabia Cup, but then I came first in the KO High Junior Stakes in early November. So that's 4 wins within the first year. And something to be careful of is that at the end of every year, you really want to try and get some races in to get your stamina or your energy as low as possible, because you will be getting the New Year's Shrine visits, which depending on your choice can earn you back some energy. And then of course in your senior year, right after that turn on late January, you also have the chance of more energy back from the raffle. And that is something else to look out for. I suggest using Game Tora, the event helper or the training helper, so that you can prioritize getting as much energy as possible whenever you're faced with choices. And then as for the classic years, there I won 9 races for a now total of 13 races total. So that was the Kyoto News High, the Phillies Review, and then the Spring Stakes is the goal race, which technically speaking you only have to participate in, but it's kind of expected that you would lose that because of the competition out there. But that's fine though, because again, like I said, right after that race, you have your inspiration, so you get a big burst of stats to help out. So then in early April, I was able to win the Arlington Cup. Late May was the Aoi Stakes, and then early June was the Epsom Cup. And then right after that, you have late June. That is your last chance where ideally you should try to rest up so that you go into summer camp with as much energy as possible. Because again, you don't have a very high level facility for speed because again, you're not training that much. But during summer camp, all facilities will be upgraded to level 5 no matter what. So ideally, you would have gotten your friendship up so that you have rainbow trainings available, but throughout the year, maybe it just wasn't that beneficial to use those rainbow trainings because again, if it's a rainbow training on a level 1 facility, you're getting an increase of only like 9 extra speed or something like that. Whereas if you get rainbow training during summer camp on a level 5 facility, you're going to be getting a lot more stats. Otherwise, after that, early August was the Sekiya Kinen, early September was the Keisei High Autumn Handicap, and you'll see these are all G3 races. So again, if you are like a bit unsure about your Bakushin and like maybe at this point in time, midway through classic year, you're seeing you're not really on pace for 30 wins, instead of doing G3 races, you can maybe then instead start doing the pre-OP or the OP races for even easier wins. Yes, you won't get the 30 carats for the trophies, but you can always do those in other runs. After that, in the final stretch of the classic year, there was the Sprinter Stakes. Again, there is a G1 race, so it's kind of harder to win. But then we go back to farming G3 and G2s with the Turquoise Stakes and the Hanshin Cup. And then in our senior year, that is where we pick up the rest of the wins. Now, again, because of how the goals work, you will, effectively speaking, have a guaranteed 8 more wins in this final senior year, assuming that you make it all the way to the end of the URA finals and you win the URA finals. Because there is the quarterfinal, semi-final, and finals, and then there are 5 different races that you have to come in first place for your goal. Now, if you aren't able to, or if you don't think you're able to complete the entire career and win the URA finals, don't fret. You don't need to win the whole career for the achievement to count. As long as you have 30 wins along the way, that's fine. But in the senior year, I took part in 19 races, which sounds like a lot, but it is very easy to do because especially again, by now in your senior year, especially after that March inspiration event, you should have a decent amount of stats that you don't really need to worry about training anymore. So again, prioritizing sprints and miles, we have the Silk Road Stakes in late January, Tokyo Shimbun High, Nakayama Uma Musume Stakes, and then the Takamatsunomiya Kinen. Again, that is your goal race, so you're fine if you come in second there. Then after that, we have the Fukushima Uma Musume Stakes, the KO High Spring Cup again, the Hakodate Spring Stakes, the CBC Show, the Sekiya Kinen, the Keenland Cup, the Centaur Stakes, Sprinter Stakes, Swan Stakes, the Oro Cup. Now you can see here, I grabbed an OP race just because, you know, maybe if in case something goes wrong and I don't get the URA finals win. I did end up coming first in the Mile Championship, which means that we also were able to do a Hanshin Cup. There's like one extra race that you can do between the final goal and then the URA sprints. And then of course, winning those 3 were able to get me the 31 wins for the achievement. And then of course, there were plenty of trophies as well that were awarded. So by the end of it all, I got about like 1,200 carats, all for one single run with Sakura Bakushin O. But yeah, you can use that as a rough guideline or outline on how many races you should have at each point in time. And if you want to, you can also use the race scheduler to try and prioritize the races that I mentioned. But that's if, again, you want to try and go for the trophies as well as the achievements. You could also very easily just simply spam the pre-OP and OP races by simply, for example, instead if that is what you want. But otherwise though, hopefully you're able to scrape up enough gems in time for Kitasan Black, and hopefully your Kitasan Blacks do go well. Until next time, bye bye!